What's going on, everyone? Welcome to How to Amazon Online Arbitrage for Beginners full course part 2, Sourcing Mastery. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you go back and watch part 1. And if you're a complete beginner for Amazon, then a quick update. I'm doing this completely free course. There's no upsell, nothing attached to it. There's no catch on this. I literally am just doing a full in-depth course completely free, and I explain why in the last video. So if you haven't already, go back to the first video in this series. Look on my YouTube channel. They're all going to be in their own series. And without further ado, let me get started here. So just with a quick disclaimer, this presentation from How to Amazon YouTube channel cannot guarantee any earnings. This is completely free course, free information from my own experience. Now, you may be wondering, as in the last video I was showing my face, some of you may be wondering where my face is, some of you may be missing my face. So I've put a little image of it there for you just in case, bit of an old picture, but there we go. If you're wondering why I couldn't put my face in this one, I did want to have a video of my face, but unfortunately, because we're dipping in and out of so many tabs, different applications, unfortunately, it just wasn't possible to make it run without having a few issues. So, without further ado, How to Amazon Online Arbitrage for Beginners full course part 2, Sourcing Mastery. Let's dive in. So if you haven't already, make sure that you like this video, please, just so that it shoots out to more people. That's all I ask from you. Nothing else, as you know, completely free. So if you've got any distractions, by the way, just get rid of them. Stop watching cat videos and all that sort of stuff. Get out the YouTube vortex. If you're trying to learn this stuff, once again, it's all in this place. It's all in one place. Sometimes it's better to not watch loads of different videos and then just focus on one channel, one person until you know the basics, because otherwise it can just get a bit confusing. I promise you I'm going to cover absolutely everything as far as I'm aware from my own experience, so there's literally no need to buy any other course. There's no need to buy any course. This is free. There's no need to buy any courses. There's no need to look at hundreds of YouTube videos and get confused. Go back, watch the first video, watch all of this series through, and you will be able to have a full understanding of exactly how the business works, how to source, how to purchase, how to scale, and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to go through absolutely everything. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Sourcing Mastery. So this is the content overview of part 2, the sourcing mastery. So we're going to get into sourcing summary and the importance of sourcing right. So that should have been correctly, but we're going to get into the importance of sourcing. Then we're going to do analyzing deals and historical data correctly. So I'm going to teach you exactly how to use software to analyze historical data correctly to make your buying decisions. And then next we're going to go into deal sheet sourcing. So I'm just going to show you an example of deal sheet sourcing because that's one of the strategies people use. So I've got to go through every single possible strategy you could use. So you've got deal sheet sourcing, then we're going to do retailer storefront sourcing, we're going to do reverse brand sourcing, then we're going to do reverse storefront sourcing. And then at the end I'm just going to summarize my key takeaways of all of them bits, because obviously there's once you get to know this business for a while, there's obviously a few things that go with it, and you just get a deeper learning as time goes on. So bear with us, stay with us, watch the whole thing through, take a step back, have a coffee, have a cup of tea, take it in, maybe even watch it a couple of times if you have to, just to take it all in. This is from what I've learned from my experience. So without further ado, quick sip of coffee. Decaf, that one. Don't know why I said that. Sourcing overview. So, sourcing is the #1 most important part of this business. It is the fuel of the engine. No products equals no profit. So what do I mean by this? If you put bad fuel, right, illegal fuel, bad fuel, there's got that red diesel, haven't you? If you put red diesel into a normal car for too long, A, it's illegal, but B, it can actually damage the car, okay? Just like if you put dodgy petrol, dodgy fuel, dodgy diesel into cars or motorbikes, whatever, you won't see much of a difference to start with, even though the performance may be lacked. But over time, that will seriously affect your business. So sourcing is #1 most important part of this business, excuse me. It is the fuel of the business, and over time, your business will start to slowly die, slowly go straight into the ground if you're not sourcing items correctly, because you're going to get a compound negative effect. Sourcing is the most important part of the business. It is the fuel you put in a car. Think of it like that. When I started out, all I did was look at shops, okay? Things have changed, okay? So when I started out, I spent hours and hours, days and days, weeks and weeks, probably months and months, simply doing the basics of what I thought was how you did it, because that's how I was taught, okay? Which was not necessarily correct. Now, it worked to me up to a certain extent, but I didn't know as much as I thought I knew, okay? So I'm going to show you how to do retail storefront sourcing, retail storefront from stores, okay, which is this one here, okay, retailer storefront sourcing, okay. That's where you simply go to a retailer. I'm going to tell you how to do that, okay. But just know that that's just one of the strategies, and that's probably the least effective strategy, but that's the one I started off with, okay. I'm going to show you that, but just know that there's a lot more methods to go with it. So with sourcing, you think it's really hard when you're starting out, but I'm just telling you now that it's not actually that hard. The truth is that you are simply not experienced enough, okay? So let me explain this. So for the first few months of my journey, just like all of us do sometimes, once we've been doing something for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, we think that we are really good at that thing. And we think that we've nipped it in the bud. We think that we're really, really good at that particular thing. The truth is, sourcing takes a long, long time to get good at. Sourcing is actually, it's a skill that you start to master over time. And then it's a skill that over time you can actually teach to others, like I'm teaching it to my virtual assistants at the moment. It's a skill that over time you can get really good at. But at the start, you think that you're good at it because it looks obvious and it looks straightforward, like some of the stuff I'm going to show you. But it's important to remember that it's not actually that straightforward. And the deeper you go and the more you learn about this business, over time, you will look back on the old deals you sourced and you'll see exactly why that deal didn't work, okay? So take everything with a pinch of salt that you're seeing in this video. I'm going to run over the basics, but just know that you will find your own way as long as you stick to the business. You'll find your own way, okay? And just a quick affiliate disclaimer here as well. So some of the tools and resources I'm going to use here, you can find them in the links below, because I have actually reached out to a lot of the suppliers and I've managed to get discounts and stuff to help you guys as much as you can in your journey, okay? Now, they are affiliate links, so if you do use any of the links, then I will get a small commission from that affiliate link, but it's only a tiny one. It supports the channel, but please, please, please don't click on it if you would prefer to just click to the website. I don't care, I don't mind. I've done this video to help everyone, not to earn just money from the affiliate stuff. I don't care if you don't use it. Please feel free to just go to the website if you don't want to use it. Obviously, if you do use it, then we appreciate that. I'm just letting you know that that's what happens. We appreciate your support on the channel if not. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive into it. So the first thing we're going to do is the sourcing summary. So we're going to do analysing deals and historical data correctly. So let's go to a new tab and let's get started here. So this is what I'm going to be using BuyBot Pro to analyse this deal, and we're going to start from the beginning, okay? We're going to start from the beginning. So let's pretend that you've gone to your deal sheet or you've gone to your retail store, you've done reverse sourcing, whatever method you've done to find your deal, this is the next stage, okay? So I'm going to show you how to do this before, because otherwise you can't find deals and then not know how to analyse them to check they are deals. So I need to show you this to start with. So let's just pretend that we found this for £15. What we're going to do is type it into our deal analyzer. In this video, I'm using BuyBot Pro. Quick sip of coffee. Hypothetically speaking, okay, this would be an amazing deal potentially, okay? If we could get this for £15, and by the way, I'm VAT registered, but I've changed the settings for the importance of this video, because most people I understand watching this will not be VAT registered, because you have to do £86,000 at last check within 12 months to become VAT registered, okay? I'm way past that. I am VAT registered, probably going to do $250,000 this year, which is a completely different level to anyone that's starting out. I don't say that to boast, I just say that to show you what's possible in this business, but I say that to show you that this graph here is not taking into account VAT, but usually it would. Okay, so this is for a non-VAT seller. This would be £15. You type it in there, and if we could actually source that for £15, this could potentially be a great deal because it's 99.6% ROI, BuyBot Pro tells us, and the profit is £14.95. Now, if you're not going to use a deal analyzer, okay, which I would strongly recommend using this one because it's fantastic. I'm not selling anything, I'm just telling you the facts. This is a fantastic deal analyzer. But if you're not going to use one, okay, and if you're not going to start out with one, make sure if you are using the Amazon calculator that you do take into account the 20% Amazon VAT fees they charge on non-VAT sellers. So this would show more profit, this item, if you were to do this on the Amazon calculator on Google. You've got to understand that Amazon is not showing you the 20% VAT that Amazon will charge you, so it will actually equate to this after you've taken that off. Okay, so that's just a little heads up there. But this is the deal analyzer at £15, $39.99. What's great is that we need to start. I'm going to go through exactly how we can analyze a deal now. Okay, so from the offset, this looks great. We've got the confidence score there. We've got the eligible hazmat. There's no IP radar here, so you've got to look out for brands that are red or orange there because that means that there has been a reported IP violation in the past. Doesn't mean that there's no risk selling this item. Okay, that's a very important note to remember. I'm going to show you in a minute how to analyze anything that is potentially a risk of you getting an IP violation. And for those of you who do not know what that is, it means a risk of you getting an IP violation from a brand, which then would stay on your account for 6 months. If you get too many of them, Amazon will most likely deactivate your account. So you've got to be careful of that. This IP radar here is a very, very important tool. This one here, dangerous goods as well, but the IP radar in particular, at the moment it says no known PL issues, right? Private label or anything like that issues. Doesn't mean that it's not still a risk, I'll show you that later, but it means that there's no reported risks from the BuyBot Pro database, okay? If it's orange, it means that they've heard of things, but they haven't confirmed issues, so you've got to do your own due diligence, just like you have with the green as well. If it's red, it means they've definitely 100% had issues, and you should avoid that item, and I would strongly recommend you avoiding that unless you're willing to take the risk. Sip of coffee, even though the profit is very, very tempting sometimes on these items, but there's a reason for that because there's the risk that comes with it. So, hazmat's very important. If you've got a hazmat item, it doesn't mean that you can't sell it, but it means that you've got to send it into the fulfillment centres, FBA fulfillment centres, with a courier that takes hazmat. Now, UPS does not take hazmat. I think DPD do at last count. It just means it's more expensive and you're not covered by the Amazon's partnered carrier, which is UPS. Okay, so that's important to remember. You need to do your own due diligence, but generally, for me and my team, because our prep center doesn't take hazmat stuff, we keep it green at all times. Don't source it if it is hazmat. Okay, we click straight off. And then your eligibility, so let's go over that. So if you're not eligible to sell it, that means that if you're gated in garden and outdoors, for example, which is not a gated category, so you shouldn't be. But if you were gated in certain categories, which you may be, but I've got a video showing you in my channel below how you can get ungated in them categories. If you are gated, then it means that you need to either ungate the category first, or it means that it's brand gated. And if it's brand gated, you need to click through on this and figure out how you can get ungated for that brand. Some brands you can, some brands you can't. Some will just go through to an application and you can ungate it straight away. Others, you'll have to send them information, in which case most cases you can't if it's brand gated. So that's what that is. Okay, so basically it needs to be green to be eligible, or you need to ungate the category or ungate the brand. Okay, got any questions about that? Post them in the free Facebook group. It's always going to be free. It's always free. Great people in there. Answer your questions as quickly as possible. It's in the description below. Just join the Facebook group if you're confused. Watch this video over and over again until you understand it. I understand it can be confusing and I'm talking a bit fast, so let's slow it down. So we've got the estimated sales calculator here, okay? And we've got the estimated sales for the previous months. Note that this is just an estimation that Buybot Pro has done as best of its ability. You've also got the estimation down there. Doesn't mean it's set in stone, and usually there's a few more sales than what it's showing. Sometimes a lot more, but it's just it's a rough estimation that's quite accurate, but usually a tiny bit out, I would say. Obviously, you can never be sure 100%. There's no way any software can ever be 100% sure on how many sales that is getting, okay? So then you've got these storage fees here. So this just gives you an idea of, note the profit and the ROI is changing when we click 3 months. As you can see, it's gone down to 96.73. Click 6 months, it's gone down to 92.47% ROI. So it just means the longer this is in storage, it shows you an example of, is it still going to be a profitable deal if it takes 6 months to sell? So I don't use that much because I like to sell my stuff within 30 to 90 days. So that's usually the worst case, but really good to take that stuff into account. So the quantity here, so if you had 10, then you wanted to work out how much profit you'll make for selling 10, you can type in 10 there and you can see £149 profit would be for selling 10 of these, 99.64% ROI. So that's a nice little touch as well. VAT override, if you're VAT registered, then you can type that in, do the override. I'm not going to go into absolutely everything here. I've got loads more videos on my channel explaining how to use this, but just you can see it all there, total cost and everything like that. It works it all out for you. So that's all great there. This is Profit Protector Pro, which means, I'll show you quickly. If you have a Profit Protector Pro account, it means that you can just type in the buy price there, type in your minimum, say 38, and then 39.99, rather than having to go out of a reprice into a separate repricer. You can just click that, and then it's done automatically, rather than you having to go into a separate one. So it's a great tool, but we're not going to go into it in detail. Those of you who haven't used old repricers, you don't know how amazing that is to have it on the product page rather than having to separately go out onto another repricer. So that's the start of the analysing deal. So just to summarise, you want to make sure that you're eligible, hazmat, IP radar, you're all okay. If not, why not? And are you going to go around it? Check the confidence score. It's not the end of the world if the confidence score is not very good. It just means that you need to do further due diligence on the historical data, which we are going to do. Check that you can sell it, check it's hazmat, check it's not dangerous goods, check all these are okay, and we're scrolling down. Now, we've got notes here, and I'm not going to go into this, but you can export all this stuff into a spreadsheet. I'm not going to go into this. Once again, post that on the Facebook group if you want to know more about that. Estimated sales, once again, here. Now, on the right, this is what's also a very important part. So moving down into the sourcing stage, into reading this historical data in the graphs. So reading Buybot Pro on the right, we can also see the stock level is 664. This is the competition analysis section, very important section. All the sellers that are on this listing, well, the top 10 will be shown here. Now, if it's green, then it means that it's FBA Prime. If it's other colours, you need to hover over it and figure out what colours they are. If it's orange, it's Amazon, and then there's a few other colours that could be FBM or FBA. Why is it important? Okay, so FBA, they're the superior people to purchase from, because anyone with an FBA Prime badge generally will have the buy box over FBM. FBM is fulfilled by merchant, as we went over in the previous video. FBA is fulfilled by Amazon. Now, it's not always the case, but obviously Prime sellers, they want that speedy delivery, okay? So just know that sometimes if you're FBA, say, for example, there was FBM here for £37, but FBA here is £39.99. Sometimes you can be £1, £2, or even up to £5 or £10 more. Not in all cases. It depends the weight, the size of the item, and the other sellers, etc. But sometimes you can be quite a lot more as an FBA as opposed to FBM. Okay. This shows you the stock count as well. So this shows you the stock level is 664 here. Okay, that shows us how many stock there is, and it shows you the price, it shows you the profit, ROI, and reviews of that seller. So you can see by the reviews how big that seller is. Now, why is this important? To see how serious they are. You can see that they've got a lot of stock, they've got a lot of reviews, and it's an alarm bell that there's only one seller here. So we're going to go into more detail into this moving down. but that shows you what that section is there. So moving down to the graph here. So on the settings, I like to change it to the use stepped BSR line. So this is the Bible Pro graph, which we're going to be using in this example. Quick sip of coffee. Now this is the part that gets confusing for some sellers. So listen up carefully to this and let's dive into this, okay? So, as you can see on the right-hand side of the Bible Pro graph here, we've got the FBA price. We've got Amazon toggle, lowest new, FBM, BSR, buy box. Don't get overwhelmed by this, okay? I usually just leave them all on, okay? So, I usually leave them on and let's go step by step into this, okay? Now, this is the sales rank and the FBA price historical data graph here. And you can see here you've got the days that you can go by. This is the offers and reviews, okay? So this means the other sellers that are on the listing, and we'll go into that after as well, and how you can look out for possible bad buyers, bad IP violation products on that graph there. So starting at the top, the FBA price here. Now the FBA price here, if you hover over it, you can see that the FBA price here, okay, in this colour, the purple here, it's $39.99, okay? So that's $39.99. If you scroll up, you'll be able to see that that matches the sale price there on the buy box, $39.99. Okay, so what you're looking at here is you're checking for consistency. Okay, you want to be checking for consistency. So what we're going to do is look at the 90 days to start with. Whenever we look on a graph, the first thing we look at, my virtual assistants look at, is the consistency there. And what we can see is that apart from this drop here, as you can see where it went down to $33.99, apart from that, we can see that this price has been $39.99 if you're following me. If you're not following me, then pause the video, rewind, go back, okay? It may take you a few times to get this. The consistency for the last 90 days has been $39.99 in price, set in stone, okay? So that's a really good sign. So what we would then do is have a further look for the last 180 days. And then we're also looking for the price consistency. And as you can see, fabulous, once again, it's $39.99 all the way for the last 180 days. And then it actually went up to $49.99 there, okay? $49.99. So that's what you need to do. You need to look for the consistency in the price in everything that you sell. This is because I think this is a private label product, which you would not want to source anyway, and we'll go into that in a minute. This is an unrealistic looking graph of what you'll usually see. Okay, so what you'll usually see is this price fluctuating up and down. And in that case, you need to check the worst case scenario of what's happened in the last 360 days, okay, and make sure that you're not at a big loss if the price has gone down to that, because there's always a chance that the price could go back down to whatever it's dropped to in the past. So a key factor in analysing your deals is the price. You've got to analyse the historical data, minimum for the last 180 days, but ideally for the whole year. Check the consistency in the price, check the good points, check the bad points, make sure that whatever the average is, you can make money at and you'll be happy to sell it at. Otherwise, there's a strong likelihood that it can go into that, okay? If for example, if this was normally selling at £15 here, and then it went back up to 39, and then it went back down to £15 here, for example, okay? That would not be a good buy unless you were willing to wait for the price to go back up to $39.99. Otherwise, we would obviously be losing money because we're buying it for £15. Does that make sense? Make sure you post any questions in the Facebook group if you want to know more about this. Look at the rest of my YouTube channel for analysing deals specifically. But this is how you do it. You need to check for price consistency, and then as you can see down here, you've got the price averages. Okay, for the last 180 days, 41.20, etc. Have a look at them, but don't fully rely on them. You need to judge it by yourself. Okay. So moving on, Amazon here. The Amazon toggle here. If there was Amazon selling on this listing, okay, what you'd want to do is look for the last 360 days. Look for all time, okay, which has only been 158 days. And you want to see if Amazon has ever been on the listing. Now, it's not the end of the world if they have, but Amazon being on the listing is a bit of a red flag, and you need to assess how often they're on the listing, how much they've got in stock, and whether they're sharing the buy box, okay? You can see if they're sharing the buy box by looking at the different people that have got the buy box, okay, hovering along here. Now, I'm not going to go into that in this video because it's quite detailed, but have a look at my other videos and how to see if Amazon is sharing the buy box, okay? But if Amazon are taking up this whole thing, so if this was orange the whole way through, then generally you would avoid that, okay? Because Amazon are always a big risk. They could suddenly drop the price. They could just suddenly drop the price, and then they've got thousands of items in stock, and you're at a loss. Okay. If they're sharing the buy box though, which you need to figure out if they are on the listing, then that's a different story. Okay. But generally, you want to be without Amazon unless they're just popping on and off very rarely, in which case it's less of a risk, but still a risk. Okay. So we've got the lowest new price here, so this could be the lowest new, which is not FBA. So if there's a price that is not FBA, for example, then, or it's FBM, for example, then once again, just because it's gone down, for example, if this was FBM, okay, which is not, it's FBA, but if that was FBM and the FBA prime was here consistently, then you may still be able to sell it at FBA at the higher price, but you still do need to take into example what the lowest price is for FBM or just non-FBM. Whatever the price is non-FBA, it's important to take note of it, but if it's not a massively significant difference, then you might be okay to still sell it for the higher price at prime, okay? You might be. So that's an important thing to look into again, but once again, it's way too detailed to cover absolutely everything about analysing deals in here. Got loads of other videos on it, have a little look, but that is the basis of the FBM vs FBA, okay? The buy box, so this is the buy box, and this will show you when the buy box has changed, okay? So the buy box is obviously this here. It's not obvious to you if you haven't done it before. So the buy box is whatever price that is selling for on the main sales page. So if you look on a phone and you click add to basket, whoever's got the buy box will be the one that gets added to the basket. So the aim is for you to be the same price or less than the other sellers, and then Amazon will rotate the buy box between different sellers if there are other sellers. In this case, there's only one other seller. Okay, so there's obviously going to have the buy box all the time. If there's loads of different sellers, then if you're the same price, then generally it should rotate the buy box price. Not always, but generally it should do that. There's loads of different factors that go into this, okay? But just know that you want to be at the same price as the buy box ideally. And that will help you get the sales. Because if you haven't got the buy box, then you're going to be missing out on a lot of sales. So that's the game, to always have the buy box. And this just shows you the buy box changing, okay? That's what these little things are here. So that gives you a good idea, okay? So the next thing we're going to do is move on to the BSR, okay? Now I skipped that then just because that was to do with the price. But now we're moving on to the BSR, which is this one, okay? So you can toggle on and off there, okay? Whatever's easiest for you. Now, this BSR, this is where it's interesting, okay? So the best sellers rank, okay? The BSR, the sales rank, okay, is this green line here, okay? So the blue is the price, but the green here is the sales rank. Now, the sales rank indicates the amount of sales that an item is getting. It indicates indicates the velocity of the sales. It indicates the lack of sales, as you can see that going all the way out there. That's negative, okay? So the important thing to remember is that your deal analysis tool will already tell you an estimated sales. Now, that's very important. Now, this will then tell you the sales rank is actually also very important to look at, because just because you've got sales now, like here, for example, or for example, that doesn't mean that you're always going to have sales. Always at that sort of level. They fluctuate a lot. So why this is so important to learn to read sales ranks is to understand the difference between an item that's seasonal, an item that's only going to be selling well for a little period of time, or an item that's just started selling now, or it's slowing down in selling. You need to be able to do a full analysis of deals to be able to understand what's a good buy and what's a bad buy, okay? So let me show you how to read a best seller's rank. Those of you who are using Keeper, by the way, there's a similar sort of graph. Some prefer Keeper, some don't, okay? This is very similar to what Keeper will look like as well, just so you know that, okay? BuyBot Pro integrates it with this tool as well, so that's why I'm using it in this video, because it's probably the most beneficial, to save money rather than having them both. So What's the sales rank? How do we read it? So the sales rank's indicating the sales. Every single drop that you see indicates some movement in sales. So it definitely doesn't mean one sale. No way, in my opinion. It just wouldn't make sense to do so because this is the last month, the last 30 days. And as you can see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we've had a few drops down here, but it's also almost gone a flat line. This means that it's selling ever since March the 14th, that has been selling a lot of items, and obviously it's a seasonal item. Well, now the sun's coming out. This is a hose pipe, so it's starting to sell really, really well. Okay, so it's important to remember it doesn't indicate one sale, but it indicates one or many more sales. Okay, so ever since the, looking at the dates down here, ever since the 12th to the 13th of March, this suddenly dropped there. It dropped down from 32,396 down to 26,781, then a massive drop down to 11,000-ish, and then all the way down to 2,400-ish, and then ever since then it's been off. Okay, so that means that ever since this date here, it went absolutely crazy. Okay, absolutely crazy. Okay, so just to clarify, one drop means, depending on the size of the drop, okay, it means one or more sales. Usually the bigger the drop, the less sales. The smaller the drop, the more dense drop, that means more sales. As you can see down here, that's dropping tiny little bits. I know it doesn't make sense, but these tiny little bits mean more sales generally because the rank is at a much lower rank, okay? Now, this just means that sales went mad in general, but one drop, for example, here may only be 1 or 2 sales, 3 sales, 5 sales. These drops down here, we're talking probably hundreds of sales here. And I think that actually this is selling hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of items. BuyBot Pro just hasn't picked that up quite yet because it's only just started selling them in the last few days, you've got to remember. So that tells you what it is, okay? Make sure you've got your BSR rank graph and ask for it in my Facebook group if you haven't, okay? Ask me for the graph and I'll give you that. You need a bestsellers rank graph. Look for it on the internet if you haven't got one. And although it's not God's gift, and it doesn't, what I mean by that is it doesn't mean everything, the graph. It does help you understand what rank's a good rank and what rank isn't a rank, okay? So the lower the rank, the better. And if you would if you knew the different category ranks, you'd understand that this is garden and outdoors, and a rank at 436 there, 119, 188. This is one of the best ranks you can get. So this is a low rank consistently from the 14th of March. Okay, it's a low rank consistently, and it's staying down there, which means that it's selling almost one of the best sellers in the whole category of garden and outdoors. Okay, so that's how you read a sales rank graph. So this is important to look at as well, okay? 1st of March to the 12th of March, this almost sold nothing. Now, what does this tell us, okay? How do we understand if items aren't selling well? Well, if the BSR is going up 8,000 to 15,000 to 20,000, that generally means no sales whatsoever, okay? So as you can see, it went up and then it went down slightly there. So that means maybe one sale there, a couple of sales, but then it's going up here. Okay, they went up there, maybe one sale there, but nothing much. Went up, and as you can see, tiny drop off there, maybe one sale, but nothing was really happening. Once again, this is a seasonal item, so not many people were buying it. All of a sudden, dropped straight down, now it's selling like crazy. That's an example of an item that wasn't selling very much at all, and then all of a sudden it started to sell loads. Okay, so that shows you that, okay? And this is obviously with the settings, I've done it for the step BSR line. If you change that, then it means that you've got to read it in a different way, okay? So this is showing you the blocks. This is showing you in blocks. So what you always want to do with a sales rank is just do like just what we did with the price, which is you want to look at the 90 days and the 180 days and the all time as well, just to get a good idea. Usually 360, the absolute minimum, okay? So looking at the last 90 days, we can see that obviously this is what we just analysed, this part here. So it was not selling well. The sales rank was going really badly, probably due to bad weather because it's a seasonal item. Then it started selling really well. So looking at fluctuations in the sales rank like this, like lumps, shows you that the item's going through periods of not selling very well. As you can see prior to that, it was actually selling pretty well. So this rank generally is staying at 6,000 something, 5,600, and then it's gone down really fast there. It stopped selling because the weather got not too good, and then it started selling really fast again. So what you're trying to do here, and once again you can see the BSR average here, which is once again a good thing to know when you're starting out, even though the BSR doesn't mean everything, because you can still buy items depending on competition that haven't got a great rank as long as they're selling somewhat, but we won't go into that in detail. The BSR average here, you can see the BSR average, which helps as well. You get a good understanding, but generally, this item, what I gather from this is that it sells, you want to analyze the sales rank, it sells very well for a lot of the time, has a few hiccups, okay, where it doesn't sell that well, but generally it sells very well, and in the seasonal peaks, like we are now, going into April, into summer, it sells amazingly, okay? So just to analyze, so far, so good. And you want to look so you don't get stung for the whole year on the sales rank and the price. Okay, so that explains, I hope in detail, the sales rank and the price. Okay. Moving down, we're looking at the offers and reviews. Okay, so what we're just looking at here is actually the offer count. Now that's the only one that I look at. Okay, so that's what we're going to go into. So you want to, I personally would get rid of these. Look at the new offer count. Now the offer tells you how many sellers. Okay, so remember we looked up here and there was only one seller. Okay. What you want to do is assess the sellers on the graph. Okay, so you can see that it's one seller here, and that's fantastic. Okay. Just like we did up here, you can toggle for the days and the weeks and figure out how many sellers there are on this. You can actually see that all the time there's only ever been this one seller on this graph, which means that you have to do your own due diligence on this, but it probably means this is a private label product which you're not allowed to sell. It means that it's a restricted brand that you're not allowed to sell. It doesn't mean you can't sell on items that haven't got any FBA sellers or that have only got one seller on them, but it means you need to do due diligence. And what do I mean by due diligence? Okay, you need to understand why there's only one seller and whether they've just got lucky or whether it's not, or whether it's an item that is restricted and you're not allowed to sell. And you do this by checking the amount of sellers that are popping on and off. Now, this is a bad example, but for example, if we had 15 sellers on here, so what I mean by that is the new offer count was 15, and you could see that there was 15 sellers here consistently, and then all of a sudden it dropped down to 5, and then a couple of days later to 1. That would be a possible risk of IP violations that have been handed out to other sellers in that time, so you would need to avoid that. You need to assess the new offer count regularly, okay? On any product that you're buying, you need to assess, has there been consistent sellers or have they dropped off in lumps at times? Because that means that it could be at risk of an IP violation, okay? And another thing to assess is the amount of sellers, okay? If an item's not selling very well, okay, and then there's a lot of sellers, say 40 on an item that's only selling, according to BuyBot Pro, 15 a month, okay, and if there was 40 sellers on that, doesn't mean that it's not a good purchase potentially, but it means that there's a lot more competition, so you're going to have a lot less sales. So you need to match up the sales rank velocity, okay, once again, rewind this, watch it again if you need to understand this. You need to match up the sales rank velocity over time that you'll understand with the price consistency, okay, is it going down, is it staying up, okay, along with the sellers that are on that graph. Now you may be able to see trends of sellers popping on and off, okay, and that means that it could be popping on a deal sheet and popping off a deal sheet, etc. You need to assess your buying decision based on sellers dropping off and sellers dropping on and how many sellers there are at this time, how many sellers are likely to come on and off, and what happens when sellers come on. Does the price tank? Does it go back up? You can assess all your buying decisions based on this, and you need to learn to understand reading these graphs in detail because that's how you're going to win, okay? So I hope that's helped you do an in-depth summary of reading graphs. Let's move on to the next stage, okay? So we've just gone into that, which is fantastic. So we've just gone into all that. So now let's cover deal sheet sourcing. Quick sip of water, sorry. So, this is an example of a deal sheet, and I've actually gone into the detail about the pros and cons of deal sheets and stuff in other videos. So I'm not going to go into detail in this. Obviously, you just got to understand that with deal sheets, obviously there's possibly going to be a catch depending on the deal sheet you use, obviously, because it's giving a lot of sellers these deals, not just you. So you've got to understand that. But they can help in other ways. For example, if you do get a deal sheet from a certain store, and this is an example of a deal sheet, online arbitrage deals, but if you do get a deal sheet from a store, you can see the stores, and then not only are you getting the deals, but you're getting an insight here into what stores have potentially got deals. So deal sheets can be used indirectly as well as directly for that particular deal. Okay, so even if this deal may get a bit busy because you're not the only one being sent this, you can then go and source other deals on this site because you've got an insight that they've got deals on that site. So that's another thing that could be beneficial from a deal sheet. But I just need to run over because I can't talk about sourcing without showing you deal sheets because they're quite important to a lot of people. So this is just an example. You simply get sent a deal and then you get sent the current buy box price. You need to analyze the deal with the details that I've just gone over. And then you need to judge your buying decision. You need to go really, really wide, not too deep. Judge your buying decision, and then learn from every single deal that you buy. Okay, so you'll probably get sent a few a day, and then you need to judge your buying decision on that. Use it indirectly as well for other stores, and that's one way that you can source deals or some of your deals alongside manual sourcing. So that just shows you an example there. So I'm not selling anything in particular. I'm just letting you know that that's an example of a deal sheet, okay? So let's move on to the good stuff, the good stuff. So that is, let's start one of the main things that you can do to actually source deals in detail, and that is retail store sourcing, okay? So let's have a little look. So we are this one here now, which is retailers storefront sourcing. The good stuff. God, another sip of water. Gets quite tiring with this, huh? So everything that we're going to be using here is the before stage of what you need to do to analyze the deals. So what do I mean by that? So when you're going to be looking at deals on here, once you've got a potential deal, you then need to go through the rigorous process of that deal and whether that deal is going to work for you using the information that I've just given you prior to this, how to analyze deals in detail. Okay, so the first thing you want to do when you go to a retail store, so this is Wilco, and then you've got Robert Dias, you want to do all these different things. You can look at specifics, different areas of the store, because not all deals have to be on offer or clearance for you to be able to make them good deals to sell, okay? That's an important part, but a lot of them will be. So to keep it simple, go to the offers section because that's where you're most likely going to find the most luck on these sites,